Alright guys, so we're going to get started on the structure of our HTML document. So I made this bigger so there's no doubt that you guys can see this. I'm going to get rid of the hello world here, and like I said, the first thing we want to put in here is the doc type. So we want to put an angle bracket or a less than, and then an exclamation, and then we just want the word doc type, usually in all caps, and then HTML, and then the closing bracket. Okay, so this is the official doc type for HTML5. After that, we want to put in our HTML tags. Okay, that's going to wrap everything. Now notice in Sublime, when I put the angle bracket, and then as soon as I hit the backslash, or I'm sorry, the forward slash, it actually gives us the ending tag automatically, so we don't have to type it out. Alright, another thing we can do is, let's say for the head tag here, we can just put the text head and click tab, and it'll give us both the beginning and the end tag. Alright, so just a helpful shortcut in Sublime, and most text editors at that. Alright, so in addition to the head, we need the body, so let's go ahead and put the body tags in. Alright, now in the head, all I want is the title, so let's go ahead and do that, and we'll say HTML, I can't spell, cheat sheet, save that. And then over here I'm going to reload, and notice there's nothing in the actual browser here because we have nothing in the body. But if you look at the tab, you'll see it says HTML cheat sheet. Okay, so whatever we put in the title here is going to show in this tab. Now, a lot of times when you're building websites, you're going to want to see the exact source code that's running in the browser. And for that, we can do a Control U. And this is going to show us the exact HTML that's being parsed. Now, what we're doing here is building just a static HTML site, so it's going to look exactly like this. But when you're using languages like, let's say, PHP, where you have dynamic programming that's kind of generating the HTML for you from variables and things like that, this is very helpful because you can see the exact HTML that's being parsed, and you can't see it in your actual code. Alright, so another thing that is very helpful in Chrome and other browsers is the developer tools. So if we hit F12, we get this little console down here, and there's different things here. There's the JavaScript console, there's networking, so you can see what pages are loading and so on. There's a lot of advanced stuff here, but for now we're just going to look at the Elements tab, which just shows the HTML. We don't have anything in the body, but if we did, we could hover over things and it'll actually give it a highlight up here. Which is very helpful, and you can even edit stuff down here, which I might get into later. Alright, it's not going to stick if you edit down here, but it will for until the page is refreshed. So let's go back to our body over here, and we're going to start to look at some tags. So we're going to start with headings. Now before we go into tags, I just want to mention comments. So with HTML, you can have these comments with the less than, exclamation, and then 2 hyphens, and then let's give this a comment. We'll just say this is where our headings are going to go, and then we want to end the comment with double hyphen and then greater than. Now this is not going to be parsed by the browser. If I save this and reload, you're not going to see it show up here because it's a comment. Okay, it's treated as it's just for the developer to see. Alright, now when it comes to headings, there's 6 different tags we can use. We have H1 through H6. Alright, so let's go ahead and put an H1 in here, and I'm just going to say heading 1 and save, and let's reload, and notice that it gives it a bigger text. Okay, so the browser by default has some core styling in it, and an H1 is going to make the text bigger. It's also going to add some padding around the edges so that the next piece of content will be pushed down a little. Alright, so that's an H1, and that's the biggest heading there is. Okay, so let's take a look at an H2. So we'll say heading 2. Let's save that, and you'll see that it's a little smaller. Notice the padding in between the two. Alright, so what I'll do now is just copy this, and let's do 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this will be an H3, 4, 5, and 6. This will be 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then I'm just going to change these as well. Alright, now I want you guys to have this to look back on if you need it. Whoops, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, so let's go ahead and save and reload the browser, and you'll see the different sizes of the headings. Now you can change the sizes of these texts through CSS, which we're going to get into probably in the next video of the series, where we can change the font, we can change the size, whatever you'd like. You could even make all of these headings the same size through CSS. Alright, so the next thing we're going to look at are paragraphs. So let's put a comment here. We'll say paragraph. And a paragraph is just P. Okay, it's just a P tag. Now I'm going to give you a little hint in Sublime. If you ever want to generate dummy text, which is just kind of just sample text to use for development, you can actually just type in lorem, the word lorem, and then tab. And that's going to give you some lorem ipsum. Now if you wanted a certain amount of words, like let's say we wanted 10 words, you could say lorem 10 tab. Whoops. Well, I guess you can't do that in Sublime. I actually haven't used Sublime in a while. I usually use Atom or Visual Studio Code, and you can do that there. I'm not sure why it doesn't work here, but anyways, we'll just generate some text, and we'll save that. And a paragraph, just like the headings, has some default styling. Okay, so for one, it has a display block, which means it's a block level element. So if we were to take another paragraph and go ahead and paste that in and reload, you'll see that it's automatically on a new line. It also has some margin. Okay, it has, I believe, 1 EM of margin, or 1 M. An M is a measurement in CSS, just like pixels, except it's used for more responsive stuff. So if we hit F12 and look at the developer tools, I'm just going to make this a little bigger, and we look down in elements, now you can see we can hover over everything and it'll show us it up top. And if we look at the paragraph here, and I just click on it, over here you'll actually see any CSS or any styling that is associated with this particular paragraph or whatever tag we're hovering over. And when you see this user agent style sheet, this is the default browser styling. So you can see a paragraph is displayed as a block, so it's block level, and then it actually has some default margin. Now I'm not going to talk about margin and padding and stuff too much in this video because this is strictly HTML. Margin and padding is CSS. Okay, so this is going to be very little to no CSS in this video. But just know that margin is spacing around the element. Okay, and you'll see that there's this before and after is actually the top and bottom. So that's why you see this space right here. It's actually 1M, okay, or 1EM, which is a measurement in CSS. So we do have margin on the top and bottom by default, okay, and then 0 pixels on the start and end, which is the left and right of the paragraph. And it even gives us a little diagram here. You'll see we have the paragraph, and if you look up in the body, it shows it highlighted, padding, which there isn't any, border, and then the margin, and you'll actually see the margin highlighted up above. Okay, so this is really helpful. Again, I couldn't imagine doing web development without the Chrome tools. Now tags can either be inline or block level elements. So inline tags or inline elements do not start a new line when you use them. Okay, they take only the necessary width they need. Block level elements, however, start a new line and they take the full width of that line. So if this is confusing, don't worry about it. I will give you some examples. Block level elements include tags like div, heading, or headings, sorry, H1 through H6, paragraphs, form. Inline elements include spans, images, links, and I'm going to go over all this stuff in a little bit. But just know that some tags are block level, some are inline. So let's go into our paragraph here, and I'm going to add some other tags here, okay? And these are all going to be inline. They're not going to make us start a new line when we use them. So let's take a look at strong, okay? So strong is basically you want to surround something and say that this text should be strong in some way. Now by default it's going to be bold, so if we save this and I reload, you'll see that the text we surrounded the strong tags with is actually going to be bold by default. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be bold. You can grab onto this from within your CSS and you can change the font size, you can make it italic, whatever you want to do. Just know that it's a semantic tag for making the text stick out. Okay, and this is usually this will usually replace the old bold tags, which are not semantic at all and not recommended anymore. Okay, same thing with EM. Okay, so EM is for emphasize. Okay, so let's surround this text right here with EM, and we'll save and reload. And again, by default, it's going to be, oops, let me put a space there. By default, it's going to be italic. Okay, so you'll see right here. But again, you can grab onto this in CSS and you can change it to whatever style you want. It just basically means that this part of the document should be emphasized, or this text should be emphasized. All right, so now let's take a look at links. So what I'm going to do is let's go to the second paragraph here, and let's say we want to wrap this text in a link to go to either another page on our site or an external website. So a link is actually an A tag. So let's say A, and we're going to give it an attribute, and I'm going to talk about attributes in a second. Okay, but let's surround this text here. All right, and then if I save that and reload, notice over here we now have this text as a link. Now, the href attribute is going to be the location that we want this link to open. And this could be either local, it could be, let's say if we had an about.html page on our site, or it could be external. So if we want to put HTTP, we'll say google.com. And if I save that, we go over here and we click on that link, it's going to open google.com. Now notice it opens it on the same page. Usually when you have an external website, you don't want the user to just leave your site like that. So what you could do is you could add another attribute called target, and one of the values for this is _blank, and that's going to open up a new tab with this site. So if we save, reload, and click this, notice that Google opens on a new tab and we still have our site right here. Okay, so it stops the user from having to leave your site. Okay, and you usually only want to use target blank if it's an external site. If you're going to another page on your website, you don't want that to happen. You don't want all these tabs opening up when you're just navigating the site. So all HTML tags can have something called an attribute or multiple attributes, and what they do is they provide more information about a certain element. For instance, the href provided in the link, what we just did, we created an A tag with an href. And what the href does is, as you saw, is it opens up or it directs it to a certain location, a certain website link. Okay, we also provided the target attribute, which is not required, but it still allowed us to make it so that the link opened in another tab. All right, now attributes are always placed at the start tag, and they're always formatted as key value pairs. Okay, the actual attribute itself, such as href or target, as we saw, that's the key, and then whatever the value is. All right, so we have the attribute name or the attribute key, and then the value. Now the value is always going to be in quotes. You can use double quotes or single quotes. I would suggest double quotes because that's usually what's used. That's most popular. All right, guys, so let's get back to our HTML. So we're going to go below the paragraphs that we just created, and now I'm going to show you something called a list. Okay. So there's basically two kinds of lists. There's an unordered list and an ordered list. So let's start with an unordered list, which is a UL tag. So in the UL, we need to have list items. Okay, a list is basically like a bullet point list. So each list item is going to have an LI tag. And then in here, we can put whatever we want. Let's just put the text list item 1. Okay, and then I'm just going to copy this, and we'll go ahead and we'll put 4 of them in. So we'll say list item 1, 2, 3, 4, and it doesn't matter what you put inside here. But let's go ahead and save that and reload. And notice that we have bullet points now for our list items. It also adds some default padding. Notice that this is pushed over by default. And if we go ahead and open up our Chrome tools, and actually let's make it a little bigger. There we go. So over here, let's hover over UL. And you'll see that there's actually some default styling from User Agent Style Sheet, which is basically just the browser default. So it's displayed as a block. Okay, it has a list style type of disk, which you can change within the CSS if you want to have a different kind of bullet point. It adds some margin. Okay, actually, yeah, it adds margin before and after 1em, and then also adds 40 pixels of padding on the start, which is the left. Okay, so it pushes it over 40 pixels. And of course, you can overwrite this from within your CSS if you want to change that. You can also remove the bullet points. You can do whatever you want as far as styling, but we're not getting into that just yet. All right, so that is an unordered list. Now we also have an ordered list, which is an OL tag. So what I'll do is just copy this, and I'm just going to change it to an OL instead of a UL. Okay, we'll save that, reload, and notice that the ordered list now gets rid of the bullet points and replaces it with the numbers. Okay, so it'll automatically add numbers to your list.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, follow, and subscribe to my channel for more tips, tutorials, and insight about programming. Stay tuned for more content and see you in the next video.